This is going to be the craziest, funniest, most informative piece of comparative mythology proving the Bible true, specifically to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because tonight I'm bringing forth crazy information that's never been seen before on YouTube, and only very few people in the world have ever come across and understood this information. Can't really find it in books because understanding the Mayan stuff is so new. Welcome back. I'm Zach, and I have an awesome show for you tonight based on this picture here behind me that we're going to focus on. It is a snapshot of what we're going to learn today. It's going to prepare us for the next episodes. I'm going to focus on the Mayans for the next couple of episodes, specifically these drawings, because this culture, these drawings, this artwork that we have here it is the best artwork that I've found in the world in order to help us to understand what exactly the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is, what that system is, what type of practices and spiritual realities and rituals that they have. And for a sneak peek of what we're going to be looking at, here's another image. I'm going to get to it here in a second. Back to our first image is he's sprinkling, as you see something come out of his hand, that's going to be blood. And in the center, that's going to be the head of the chicken that he is holding, crazy enough. And on the left is a serpent pole that I'm going to prove is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Back to our sneak peek image. Okay, this is a Mayan royal woman who is bloodletting, they say, and I believe also has to do with hallucinogens. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight. On the left, you see the god of lightning, which would be the upper world god. She's middle, she's on the earth, she's surface level. And on the right, you see, I think this is the one who's the paddler of the underworld. There's multiple pictures I have, and I'll show you tonight. He's underworld. The god on the left, that's lightning. God on the right, he's a paddler, paddling the boat in the underworld like the river Styx. And in the middle is the surface, and that is a human woman. And what's bringing these to fruition, what we're going to be looking at tonight, is the blood. Just like the Christian side, that we're covered by the blood of Jesus, and that gives us access to God and our faith and our walk with Him. Strangely and unfortunately, the other side, that they offer blood to this entity in order to bring him up. So God comes down to us, and in this, they sprinkle blood to go access to the underworld. So that's what we're looking at today, guys, and I'm going to throw a little humor in this episode to keep it lighter, but tons of information that you've never seen before, I can promise that. All right, and as you see right here behind me, you see one of them, and it looks familiar. You'll find that in the voodoo religion, right, of getting rid of the chicken. We'll have some funny videos on getting rid of the chicken popping up here shortly, to put some humor to this very dark concept, because this is the god of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's a sneak peek for next episode.
Behold, the avian offering killed by the gods.
Is it supposed to do that?
Remain still, foul creature. The sacrifice must.
Heck, ow, my
Should
eye!
I help?
No!
So once again, I'm Zach. I am a Christian, and I want you to focus on this tree right here. Look at the far left, and that serpent-wrapped tree / pole. This is the serpent from Genesis 3, from the Bible. And that staff represents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that God next to him on the right side right here, who's sacrificing a chicken to that serpent of old, to that tree of knowledge of good and evil, is defined in the Bible. That serpent is defined in the Bible as Satan, Genesis 3, specifically on that pole, the one who brought the curse to Adam and Eve, brought the lie to Adam and Eve, and opened up the world of duality, good and evil. Well, also the God on the right here behind me is a God of the underworld. And here we see he's teaching further generations how to communicate with spirits of the underworld using this biblical tree of the knowledge of good and evil, this serpent, and specifically, as you see sprinkling out of his hands right about this area here that I can't get to, okay, that's going to be blood, and blood's going to open the portal. There's power in the blood, life in the blood, and that's what draws these entities up. Okay, so before I get to the funny stuff, let's pray, because this is a serious episode. We know that Jesus Christ is the tree of life. This is the tree of the invert of God. Okay, we know that Jesus Christ, the sprinkling of the blood, his blood is what gets us into heaven. And we know that this blood right here that he's sprinkling is going to open the portal for the underworld to come to you. And we don't want that. It's not what we want. That's not what I'm here to teach. What I'm here to teach is that this is a true reality. You would be able to do it if you wanted to, but you would be cursed by these entities because you're putting this uh, crazy looking guy and all of his buddies in the place of God in your life. So if you want this entity with a black mirror on his forehead who's a big fan of blood magic and doing crazier things than you could ever imagine Hellraiser doing, um, then sign up for it. But I would request you not to use this information to do evil or work this type of magic because it will come with worse than Ouija board punishments, and they will come quickly. So I pray that God bless us and guide us and keep us from choosing the darkness, choosing the dark path. God, that you would draw us unto the light and draw us unto yourself. God, that you continue to reveal evil. You said that you'd reveal evil and that all things shall be revealed because you are the light and you are the truth and you break through all these things. So I just want everyone to know that, God, and I pray that you just build them up in their faith and build them up with this episode and this knowledge. And I want them to know that it's to prove you real. All glory to God, the Most High, Jesus Christ. Amen. So let's get the show started. A little funnier, so serious. I've been doing a lot of serious stuff, so I'm going to throw a little funny stuff in here for you. Okay, so I'm asking the question. Look at this old guy here, this God, little G God we keep talking about, making this interesting thing he's doing. Can anyone tell me what he's doing?
Hola, amigos! What is the serpent doctor doing?
No bien, Pablo. He's decapitating a chicken for a ritual offering. Can you say ritual offering?
Ritual offering!
Great job!
I'm the map, I'm the map, I'm the map! First, the jungle of screaming birds. Then, the table of sharp knives. And finally, the serpent-wrapped magic tree.
Hola, amigos. What is the serpent doctor doing?
Hope you enjoyed that. More of those little clips to come here soon. Anyway, so after writing this episode, I found out that the God making the sacrifice on our right here is actually of the tree, is part of the tree. He is the God of that tree, of the knowledge of good and evil. And so he's making a sacrifice to the tree in which he's a God. Why does that make sense? Well, A, because he's teaching it. He is the high shaman of this religion. He is the tree. I don't know about the serpent. Maybe that's a separate spirit. It seemingly all goes together. I think he is the serpent. He is the tree. Okay. And just like he's the tree of evil, Jesus Christ is the tree of life. And just like here, he is the high shaman of this religion here. So what I'm saying is he's teaching people how to bring worship here to himself. And this is one of multiple writings and things that you'll find. And hopefully I'll be able to cover a few of them. But check into the Dresden Codexes and the KERR list. You'll find these vessel drawings here behind me. This is the high shaman of the pagan inverted tree of evil. Okay, so this is their high shaman. Jesus Christ is our high priest, okay, of our tree of life. And that he sprinkles the blood for us to go through. And so here we have this entity doing the same thing because he, Isaiah 14 says he wants to be as God, sit above God, and act in the place of God. And he's creating his own similar, very, very similar system. Okay, so I hope you can see that. And this entity's name is Itzamna. If you want to do more research before my next episode, which I'm focusing on him and proving that he is that tree. But today we're focusing on that snake tree there being the world tree of the Mayans, and therefore proving, and with that, in addition with a lot of other facts I'm going to bring you, and proving that that is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then once you have that locked in your mind, and then you'll be able to see the next set of symbols I show you with this crazy looking little G God next to me to prove. So you need to know what the tree is and the powers of moving up and down the realms and the spirits coming through and knowledge coming through from the below, as we receive ours from all good things come from God, right? We receive ours from on high. They send it from below. And so I need you guys to try to watch, if you're interested in information, watch these episodes, this and the past three before it, and even, a little more information about the serpent seed before that, because it's getting deep, but I'm going to make it as easy to access as possible. So God help us with that. All right, so we've been chasing down that serpent and that tree of the knowledge of good and evil for 4 months now. So I'm going to go over some of those episodes. If you want to skip, feel free to skip ahead if you already know. All right, so I'm going to go over the episodes to see what information you can look at, and then we're going to dive into this craziness, absolute craziness. I think if you're interested, you're going to love this. This is the deepest information I've come across as far as what actually is going on the dark side. And so my first episode of the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil was in Samaria because I was studying Enki. And I found his Mies tree, the Mies, M-E of power, I think pronounced May, Mies of power. And they were associated with a Mies tree that grew in the land of Eridu. Okay, so let's start off with Eridu is in the intersection of the Tigris and Euphrates, which the Bible defines as two of those four rivers running out of or into the Garden of Eden. So most likely location of the Garden of Eden, we have Enki in this tree of many powers, the tree that gives you the power to have civilization, to make people want you, to start your own cult, to make your own craft, blacksmithing craft. It makes you a god, a little g god amongst humans at that time. And Inanna got those powers. So, and also this tree of Enki, and I've been showing this thread keeps going through all these episodes, and it's going to go into the next one. This tree of Enki was the means by which he came up and down out of the abyss, because it wasn't only a tree, it wasn't only his temple. Okay, it was also a UFO, basically, just like God has a UFO that's in the shape of this creation, this earth, right? When you see it in Ezekiel 1 and 10, it has those Ufanim, the wheels within the wheels, which represent the stars and the sun, moon, and planets. Those are in different, right, different orbits slightly. Okay, so those would be two different wheels, wheels within wheels, and then you have the firmament, and you have, God basically flying on a flying craft that in itself is a representation, a awesome spiritual representation of the earth. So Enki, the serpent of the netherworld, also has a UFO, and that's these gods that taught in the Vamana and the Mahabharata, these kings how to take flying crafts, and the gods and the kings went and abducted women, which started the Ramayana war and other things. So this has been going on for a long time, and these Enkis specifically comes out of the abyss and is defined as the color of the firmament, which I forget the name of the stone. You guys can throw the stone in there; it'll pop up in my head. That blue sapphire-ish stone. Okay, that's the color of this pyramid-like thing when it becomes his craft. Because we're talking about magic, we're talking about little g God. So this isn't really something for atheists to try to grasp onto. This is very high spiritual knowledge. So he takes off in this flying craft, just like Odin has sleep near his horse, and that's how he moves up and down between the realms on Yggdrasil, and then through the realm, individual realm itself. And we'll see that in the next episode, a little bit this episode, that he's putting sacrifice to that tree because when you do it on the surface, that's what opens his access to the surface. So he's using the tree and sprinkling the stuff on it in order to move up and down. All right. So back to before we talked about the UFO, that tree of Enki that grew in the Abzu, and the place that was most likely the Garden of Eden. So it's not only UFO, it's also a tree, right? As we see next to us, and I just explained. All right, so going up and down that tree. So then we move on. Okay, who came and got those powers? Inanna, which is the Venus goddess, came, got drunk, and had relations with Enki at this tree over the Abzu, and she was able to take off in the boat of heaven. She took off in a boat of heaven, right? Back to the UFO thing, and took off with those powers and went to Erek, which is the place in Iraq that I was deployed to. Okay. So those Mies of power were in a tree over the abyss, the Abzu. Same thing as Odin went to Yggdrasil, whose roots go down to the well underneath the earth, the subterranean earth. Okay, and he hung himself from a tree, speared himself, and went down after 9 days hanging there, and got the runes of power. Just like Inanna got the runes of power, Odin got the runes of power, but he had to go through a different trial. Inanna gave her flesh, and so did Odin in some sense. He gave up his life to go down there and get them. And so I tied in that episode. That's my last episode, um, showing how Odin and the tree and the connection, being the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, using those runes that he picked up, which are the same and I showed how they line up with the powers that were given to Inanna. I show those ancient sources and those texts together. So if you want to see that, check that out. The rising and dying sun gods. I did a cool episode based on mainly Mesoamerica with Quetzalcoatl coming down at the equinox when the sun hits the pyramid in a certain way, makes an undulating snake going down the pyramid, showing him going into the underworld, which is the sacred cenote, which is a big circle of water, access point to the underworld, to the Maya. He goes down into it. He's also a sun god. Okay, and then we can tie that into all these sun gods going down into the abyss in all these cultures. We can take that back to Shamash. I got to see which commenter left me this. One that I talk to often, I'm sorry. That Shemyaza, okay, is Shemyaza is Shamash. Shamash in Samaria, the sun god, is etymologically very, very similar to Shemyaza, who is the leader of the Watchers who got locked up in the abyss. So Shemyaza really ties in with Shamash, okay, and also just the sun itself goes down into the underworld and has to rise up again. Well, when does that happen? You may ask. Open your Bible to Revelation 9, and you'll see this angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Greek is Apollyon, which is Apollo, who was the sun god of Greek. Sun god went down, and the sun god got to come back up again. And he will be released from the bottomless pit in which he is locked, in the Bible called Tartarus and other names. Okay, so check those episodes out. I hope you enjoy them. All right, so back to what we're talking about. This guy doing this to a chicken way back in the day. And what has that led to in the modern day?
You say funny thing. A rice. Chicken, a rice. A rice, chicken, a rice.
A rice.
Now, wait for fog machine. A rice, a rice.
A rice.
A rice, chicken.
A rice.
All right, let's get back on track. Let's get serious here. Let's get serious. All right, so I'm going to prove to you that it's the Mesoamerican world tree. And as we're proving that, you're going to see all these massive connections to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then we're going to get into pointing out, let me pull the image back up again real quick. Right there, we're going to get into pointing out at the top of that serpent pole that you see there, those 4 buds. Those are the same, similar to the 4 coming out of a lotus flower. Those are water lilies. In Egypt, it comes out of a lotus flower. Same thing, basically. And it births the 4 Horuses, the 4 sons of Horus. That's also going to be tied into the cardinal directions, the 4 Quetzalcoatls, the 4 sun gods of Mesoamerica. And in Egypt, the same exact symbol coming up out of a water lily, a lotus, is 4, which have literally the 4 sons of Horus. Okay, and those are 4 sun gods as well. So many connections to Egypt, including brother of Quetzalcoatl, the sun god, being Zalal, a dog of the underworld, and Anubis in his relationship to Osiris being the same, a dog of the underworld. What do you know? All right, let's get back on track here, ladies and gentlemen. World trees are a prevalent motive occurring in the mythological and mythical cosmologies, creation accounts, and iconographies of the pre-Columbian cultures of Mesoamerica. In the Mesoamerican context, world trees embodied the 4 cardinal directions, like we're talking about, as you saw on the top of that serpent tree, which also served to represent the fourfold nature of a central world tree, a symbolic axis mundi that connects the planes of the underworld and the sky with that of the surface world, the terrestrial realm. Okay, so, and we're seeing here it's going to be more defined, so let me put it my words first, is that just like this mandala from India that I'm in Tibet, Nepal that I'm popping up here, and in many other places has 4 sides, right? And there's a center, and also the pyramids, 4 sides, and it goes up to a center. Why is that important? Because it represents the 4 directions, the 4 angels of the 4 winds, okay, and the 4 sun gods. In Mesoamerica, and their representations of their ages, the age in which they are in. And then the 5th point being in the center which is where they come together, and it's the center point of this axis mundi, this world tree. So they all come from the center point, which is the world tree. And there's only two world trees, and one is the tree of life, and one is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Among the Maya, the central world tree was conceived as or represented by a ceiba tree, and is known variously as a wakachan or a yaximexche. Pronunciation terrible. Depending on the Mayan language. The trunk of the tree could also be represented by an upright caiman whose skin evokes the tree's spiny trunk. And so, like I've already talked about, that god on the right side of our last picture, okay, is the god of this tree. And he is a reptile entity. And then also on the left of the picture, you see that is the snake itself. So let's pull up a picture what they're talking about, this upright caiman. And here we are. Representation of the Mayan world tree with a caiman crocodile as its trunk. And that trunk represents the surface world. And then the tail, the underworld, the branches would be the heavenlies. Let's get back to this study. Directional world trees are also associated with the 4 year bearers in Mesoamerican calendars and the directional colors in deities. Mesoamerican codices, which have this association outlined, include the Dresden, Borgia, Fejavere, Meyer codices. And there probably was hundreds, maybe 1,000 of them, but our, I was going to say good friends. I don't know if I should say that. The Catholics came in and decided to burn all these books because why would you want to be able to prove the devil is true like that? So let's just burn all the evidence up, and when you get to the 1900s, we'll say the devil isn't real. I wonder why, because you went and burned all the evidence. So it is supposed that Mesoamerican sites and ceremonial centers frequently had actual trees planted at each of the 4 cardinal directions, representing the quadrupart concept. So let me throw up this note here first. And these are notes I make as they're coming to my mind, so I don't forget to tell you to them, so they're not in perfect order. So amazingly, I just found this part of the research yesterday. And once again, the world tree is the mechanism by which the gods resurrect back into our realm. It is also, and through that, it is the means of breaking through the veil, what we call the veil. So this means the magic we are seeing in this ritual by worshiping and bloodletting to the world tree with the chicken is in many senses a means by which the human or shaman assists the spirits in returning to the surface realm through ritual using red drippy stuff. Sounds familiar.
Chicken, arise. Arise, chicken, arise.
And then, okay, and I found in the Dresden Codex, and I can find that again, I'll put a picture up here for you, where they split the man open right here, okay, on an altar, and the roots of it run down through the temple into the underworld, and it grows out of him into the tree. So that by doing that type of sacrifice, you've literally opened the tree into our realm. So you've opened the way for this serpent to come into our realm by doing this. Very crazy. We're going to be looking at this stela. Very interesting as a depiction of the world tree. One thing I keep talking about, and I'll be able to do an episode on, the water lily and the lotus. Okay, it represents something coming out of the deep, that dark deep, which is back to the beginning of Genesis when God hovered on the face of the waters. It was in darkness. Everything was in darkness, and this represents something coming out of that darkness, that dark water, okay, the abyss, and coming up into our realm. And those water lilies and lotuses, okay, are hallucinogenic. And I think it's Uncharted X. I forget the gentleman's name. Very, very good researcher. God bless him. Hopefully get to meet him. Okay, in the research he's doing, and they were showing how there's tons of mushrooms all over Egyptian hieroglyphics, and I never even realized it. Mushrooms and lotuses for hallucinogens, and these people over here in Maya are certainly using hallucinogens if you haven't been able to tell that yet. And here's something, this is what's also called in Greek, in the Orphic religion. This right here is what's called the mystery of the mysteries. This is one of the holy grails of pagan mythology within Greece is them realizing that like Dionysus is Zeus is this next person, that there is an entity most likely who works through all of them. And so here we read the frequent personification of gods and rulers as manifestations of the world tree, of this singular god of the world tree who we've seen in the last pictures, Itzamna. And next week we're doing a big study on Itzamna, who is the god of this tree and moves and has different forms based on where he comes out. And I'm going to show that to you in pictures next episode. Okay, and then that manifestations of the world tree, this God goes through the world tree. He manifests through it, and he has multiple different ways he can manifest. And it underscores the crucial symbolic and ritualistic significance in Mayan religion and kingship. So they realize that, and the Orphic mysteries realize that there is most likely a singular entity that is many, very possibly. Let's take a moment to look at this picture here. And this is the Mayan world tree, I believe. I'm probably wrong. Where is it at? I was going to say Palenque. Okay, it is at Palenque. This is the world tree. You're going to see the bottom, those waves. That's the waters under the earth. The square level here at the roots is the underworld. And you see the underworld contains pyramids. I wonder why. And then it comes up into the surface realm, and then the branches are going to go up into the heavens. So the tree is connected to the waters beneath the earth. Let me see if I can. There we go. The tree is connected to the waters beneath the earth, known as the Abzu in Samaria, the realm of Enki, and in the Bible as Tehom and Tiamat, the dragon of the deep waters. The king of these waters is Apkallu from Revelation 9, the sun god named Shemyaza, who descended into the abyss. I know I've already said this. Good to say it again. Shemyaza and Shamash, the sun god, goes into the abyss until great tribulation comes. So just like Yggdrasil, the Norse tree of good and evil grows from the waters beneath the earth, from the three wells of memory, Nephilim, and hell. Nephilim, you see that? Nephilim is one of the locations of the roots of the tree of good and evil in Norse mythology. I wonder why it has that name. Does anyone know what a Nephilim is? And just like the Enki's Mies tree, which grows from the Abzu and Eridu, land of the Garden of Eden, in this instance, we have the Mayan world tree growing from the waters beneath the earth. And an upcoming picture I have will show the gods of witchcraft with faces like serpents being at the bottom of this same said tree. And at the level of the trunk is the surface world, and the tree branches reach to heaven. Just like in the book of Daniel, the great world tree of Nebuchadnezzar, cut down to its roots by watcher class angels. And it's all very interesting for sure. All right, let's continue on, proving that this is, at a minimum, the Axis Mundi, our title, the sacred tree of the Maya. And it's this ceiba tree that we're going to see a few pictures of. Very big tree, very tall. So it looks as if a very good fit for a world tree. The ceiba tree was sacred to the Maya, symbolizing their universe with its roots, trunk, and canopy. Maya believed the ceiba's roots, trunk, and branches connected the underworld to the middle world, like Lord of the Rings, and then also to the heavens, surface world. The Maya world tree was shown in their artwork so many times over and tied to specific gods and directions. So here's the root bottom of the ceiba tree going into the roots. Its name in the Mayan language is Yaxche. Green tree, or that's an interesting one, isn't it? First tree. The first tree. It was in the first garden for sure. And I think because Adam and Eve came in that garden and this tree was ready to take them down. So this tree and the entity is older than Adam and Eve. These are the Elohim of Genesis 1. This entity is an Elohim that we see moving through this tree. A little g God for sure. Cool little fact about it. Produces 2 gallons, close to 3 gallons
Oh, nice. A crapper.
That toilet is environmentally friendly. Do you know how much water is used up every time you flush the toilet?
I give
3 gallons.
the poor children.
Per tree per night, and an estimated 45 gallons per flowing season. Here's a picture. We're going to get into a little bit more here later of said world tree coming from the underworld. And you see there in the center, splitting out. And this is a reproduction of world tree pages in the Madrid Codex. And so, the ceiba was the most sacred tree for the ancient Maya, and according to the Maya mythology, it was the symbol of the universe, their universe. The tree signified a route of communication. Of course, we're seeing that between the 3 levels of Earth's surface heavens. Its roots were said to reach down into the underworld, branches into heaven, trunk, middle, earth, or our surface. And according to the Maya, it consists of 4 directional quadrants and a center space corresponding to the 5th direction. And there are 5 suns, mainly spoken about as the 4 of them, but there's 5 suns in the Mayan mythology. Here's the colors associated with them. That number 4 is going to play a part in that left side of the image where we see the 4 lotuses coming up, 4 water lilies coming up. And once again, this picture we're looking at is found in the Dresden Codex, and this codex illustrates a tree growing, as we talked about, from the chest of a sacrificial victim, because that's what brings it forth out of the underworld, is the blood. And there is life in the blood. So I thought this was interesting just to go over real quick the Mayan goddess of the moon, fertility, and the end. Lady Rainbow, she of the pale face, associated with fertility. Okay, in the last episode, the Odin episode, really got into those 3 women who are at the well at the bottom of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The 3 women who are weaving, they're weaving fate. And here we have a goddess, once again across the ocean, who is a goddess of weaving, a goddess of the fate, tied into the moon and fertility. Fertility being as an underground god. Child Lady of the Seas. So we see that all over the world. Lebanon area. I've seen a lot of things that ties into mermaids. And the woman in the middle of the cenote, which is the water, the limestone circle of water that goes down for 100+ feet, all over the place in the Mayan lowlands, in which they sacrifice to their gods. So there's 2 possibilities of this goddess. And so the good thing for us is we've talked about how this one god can show up in multiple different forms in multiple different realms with a different face on. And so it's a possibility the same thing with this goddess who down here in here somewhere talks about her being the wife of this Itzamna character, this chalk character. Feel free. The Itzamna. That's what I was looking for. But other names for these entities. Creator gods of Maya origin myths. And so Goddess O, so it'd be the moon, I believe, at its full, which represented by an aged woman, identified not just with birth and creation, but with death and world destruction. And so if these are different goddesses, I know we haven't really looked at what they're talking about, but the goddesses, one's old, one's young, have similar stuff going on. Most likely the same goddess of the moon, one being the full moon, one being the new moon. I found this interesting. It has the name of the red rainbow or the great end, like destruction. Goddess O is depicted with a red body, just like the maize god, and with feline aspects. Feline aspects to the Maya that is almost always that I've come across in the short time I've been studying this is the jaguar, and that is an underworld. That's almost always from the underworld, so that means associated with the underworld. And we see that correlated by the fact that she has a skirt marked with crossbones and other death symbols. So there you get the Illuminati, the American Illuminati coming out of Yale, Skull and Bones, number 322, the Yale Senior Club, secret society, which the Bush family was in, and many others, has a skull and the crossbones. Closely identified with the rain god Chak, which I am starting to believe is when the water or the sun god Quetzalcoatl or Tezcatlipoca, whatever age that we're in, goes down, he comes this entity, this underground entity. So that Quetzalcoatl would be the heavenly form of, the sky form of this tree of good and evil, and Chak would be the underworld. Itzamna represented the whole tree, and then Quetzalcoatl would be the sun god up top, and this Chak rain god would be the entity on the bottom, if you see what I'm saying here. Interestingly, for the Mayan, rainbows are not good omens. God gave it to us as a good omen, but we see they're not worshiping the God that we are. So therefore, rainbows are bad omens to them and the flatulence of demons, which is interesting way to say it. Chak Chel, this wife of Chak God, Itzamna God, okay, is associated with weaving once again. Cloth production, one of the only positive things in this list. We got spiders. Okay, we got curing and water, divination, destruction, and fertility. So I just want to tie in the goddess there and show you that. It's not our main study. Okay, so I went ahead and I found this portion of the Dresden Codex we've been talking about. Okay, and how does this world tree come into being? Why is he sprinkling this chicken blood around? Because it's opening a portal to the underworld. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to take a look at it, and then we're going to read my notes. You tell me what you see. Okay. At the top of this tree, just like so many of the world trees around the world, including Egypt, including the Hulupu tree and Isis, right? It had an Anzu, had a bird up top. When she went to look for Osiris, a serpent at the base, and in the middle, at the surface level, our level was Lilith, which is the female demon who goes around taking out children and teaching those things. So those women who do those things are really always associated with um, Lilith and associated with those actions. Okay, so what you're seeing in the middle here is the tree, and the tree is coming up from the bottom. You see in the bottom goes off into two dragon heads. Those are the roots into the underworld. And on the left and the right, behind my shoulder, you see gods of the underworld. And then you see growing up is a tree. And what brings this tree into our realm? Well, nothing less than the sacrifice of this here poor gentleman who you see a line coming out of his face, his forehead seemingly, and more importantly is a tree, the world tree, which just like Isis and Inanna at the top has the bird, just like Isis and Inanna looking for Osiris, okay, on the bottom it has a dragon, just like the Norse world tree. It has a eagle on top, and on the bottom it has a serpent chewing at the roots, and running in between them is a rat. And I'm pretty sure what you see on the right side here is a rat. So there's absolutely zero question in my mind that these are all one world religion. And so I'm thinking, because some of the stories always seem to show these stories being brought forth after the flood, and I think that's because they saved these stories, that these were given at the Tower of Babel per se, or maybe we go along with what their myths are, that there was a cave of 7 caves, and that the root races came out of that, and there's 7 mountains in the book of Enoch, and there's 7 planetary angels, right? And on the other side, it's because there's 7 spirits of God, which you'll find in Revelation and Zechariah. A little more zoomed in look here for us of this crazy tree coming out of this man, coming out of the underworld. And why is that important? Is because this what brings this forth unto our realm is the sacrifice, is the blood, because the life is in the blood. So we have Mr. Chicken Hawk here showing us how to appease the serpent. I'll try to find a good spot for that. Let's look at what the worship developed into. It seems like the tree of good and evil grows up and into our realm through the split open part of this young man's chest on a Mayan altar to the gods of the underworld, aka the gods of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the beak of the bird is the eye and optical nerve of this victim. Okay, so that's where it goes. I forgot about that. That thing coming out of his forehead, okay, is his eyeball, and the bird's chewing on it. Lovely fellow. It must be a heavenly bird, right? That's what heavenly birds do. Okay. Which, kind of like Odin, who trades his eye to the well at the base of Yggdrasil, the tree of knowledge of good and evil in Norse mythology, which he gives up physical sight to gain the third eye, the spiritual insight. Well, here you see in which ways the veil is broke open in order to bring the tree of good and evil through the veil, which means bringing forth the gods and the gods of the tree, the serpent of the garden, who is Satan. So here we have how the devil taught the people of Mesoamerica to worship him. Literally, serpent satanic worship is exactly what we are looking at. And this is one of my, I have it colored for us here. I didn't know this. And so thank God we've already talked about UFOs. Thank God we've already talked the world tree. Because I always thought, man, this is the best evidence I've ever seen of a UFO. And guess what? It is. But it's also awesome evidence of the world tree. It is. So look in the center. Can you see this? Look at the center of our page right now. What do you see? That's a cross. That's the craziest part about this picture. And I found them in Palenque. This is found in Palenque as well. This is on the tomb of the king, Pakal. Okay. Very, very interesting. Looks like flames coming up. Okay. And what we see right here, that's the eyes. And this is the deity of hell. Um, their consuming entity of the underworld. And you see the king here is ascending out of the underworld. This is the axis mundi. This is their world tree. And you see on the left and right, those are dragon snouts coming out of the world tree at the surface level. And this would be in our realm. This would be on the earth realm. And at the top, you have the heavenly dragon, the seraphim, that you might be able to find in Isaiah 6, Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 10. And around them you have some other anthropomorphic forms, different types of forms. But this gentleman, this king, is coming up, and he's coming up through the world tree. It's their belief, that's how they saw the resurrection. Back up into heaven. This is the inverted tree of life. This is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And as everything that God does, the devil tries to portray, right? His Antichrist is going to have a head wound. He's going to resurrect. And back then, here we have the devil telling them how to resurrect. I wasn't alive back then, so I don't know exactly what the whole thought process was. And so this is more of what it actually looks like here before it's colored in. Let me get a better. And you can kind of start to see that face more. That face is also in, this is a Palenque, that face I've also seen in Chichen Itza on the Venus temple in which they did human sacrifices. It's next to the massive wall of skulls where they did human sacrifices on top of the Venus temple. I think it seemed less than 20 feet tall, I'm sure, probably 15 or shorter, right around 15 feet high. And on it you saw this entity that you see directly right here. You see his eyes and that dragon looking like he's coming right at you. Okay, that's like basically the dragon of the underworld. That's Itzamna. That is the entity of the tree. And that is the rest of the tree going up and above him. So let's learn a little bit about the site of Palenque. And so when you come in to Palenque, you come in right here, right out in that field. And you're going to have to go through a bunch of people asking you to be their guides. You might as well pay me to be your guide, because I was out there and people were trying to tell me it's not a dragon. They're basically trying to turn away any type of biblical story. So, you get what you ask for. They're gonna repeat what the godless archaeologists are telling them, because it's for the glory of God's people to be revealed thing and to understand and find knowledge and seek after knowledge, and it's the glory of God to conceal a matter from those who haven't earned it. because knowledge is power and knowledge is given by God. Good things come from God. And so you come in through this field here, and as you look to my left, this thing, so you see the humans down there, and this looks so massive. It's actually so steep, and you see it keeps running off to the right, and it's actually so big, it's like it's its own mountain. It almost makes you think like some of the mountains you see, not all just giant ancient creatures, but something man-made, because it is highly impressive. And in the bottom of that is where you find this grave, that tomb cover of Palenque, Pakal. That's where we're at here, Pakal or Palenque. And as you come this way, so right now this is the palace that was closed off when I was there. They were strengthening a lot of those things. They don't let you climb up this, but they do let you climb up a little bit, like dead center there, that stairway a little bit further off. Let you go inside the temple or inside that massive stepped pyramid for a little while. Don't let you go too far into it, unfortunately. And then recommend taking that path up there. There's a temple with like a cross in it. You have to climb up these really super steep, dangerous steps to another temple with all these crazy drawings on it. But I just want to give you an idea of what you're looking at here. So that massive step pyramid is where, at the bottom of it. Oh, there's somebody. Who took the picture? There he is. Yeah. All right. Show. Okay, I think I did a pretty good job proving to you connections to the world tree, connections to the axis mundi. And so now we're going to focus on those, and then also, of course, the serpent and Satan. I think I've connected that quite well. Let me know what you think about that. Now let's focus on the four nodes at the top of this staff, at the top of this tree, the knowledge of good and evil. What do they represent? Okay, I've shown you pictures with Egypt. Pop them up again. All right, compare them. Look at them both together right there. What do you think? Yes, because Horus is the sun god. This entity in Mesoamerica is completely tied into these sun gods. And you see this pull over and over talking about, okay, that those four, the four cardinal directions and the four gods associated with the sun. And there's one in that center. That center one I'm believing is Itzamna. Okay, is Satan or whoever the god of the tree, if it's separate from Satan, the god of the tree, which I don't think it's separate. I think it's the same, right? It really, 99%, it's definitely Satan of the Bible. Not much of a doubt in my mind, but just in case, is the center point, right? He's the center point of all this. He is the tree in which all these entities of his come out. Remember, just like in our system, Christ is the head of the body, and we are the body. We are one. Go over to Satan's realm, and you're going to find something similar. Okay, so we're looking at Chat GPT. We're going to look at this, and we'll wrap this episode up. What are the four nodes on top of the Dresden serpent tree? And they are almost certainly the directional blossoms, symbolic flowers marking four cardinal directions. In my cosmology, the world tree stands at the center, and its upper branches sprout four directions, symbols that radiate outwards. These appear in three main forms. Rosette, flower rosettes. You see that often tied into Venus. And there's a Venus flower in Chichen Itza. There's a Venus flower in Samaria for Inanna. And multiple times over, even to the lotus goddesses of Vedic Mahabharata. But the one we're going to be, and then also lily like the lotus, right? This is saying it's more of the flower type. Here's the colors that we've already seen, and I'm not going to go over because I don't see much to go over for this specific episode. Okay, are they lotus or are they water lily? Water lilies are a major Maya creation symbol because lotus is the blue lotus of Egypt. So they're very similar and they produce hallucinogenic effects. Okay, they grow where? From the primordial waters, just like the Bible. At the beginning of creation, they come from the deep. At the boundary between life and death, and scenes of resurrection. And why that? Because when it comes up to the top of the water, it goes into the next realm, which is the surface earth, surface world, and it's a boundary. It's a boundary marker. It's a limit. It's something that's able to cross barriers that most things are not able to. And if it hasn't been crazy enough, it's going to get really crazy right here, and then we're going to wrap this episode up because there's already so much going on. But this is a great way that ChatGPT helps lay out what I've been finding. So, at the boundary between life and death, which points to, importantly, the scenes of the resurrection of this God. And one of the big questions for me and multiple commenters so far has been, okay, one said today about, okay, the tree and then the branches of the tree being the Nephilim. And that's a fantastic answer. I think that's true. The resurrection of this singular God, Itzamna, that we keep seeing. And we're about to see more of him here, and which is going to point and hopefully excite you guys for the next episode as you see where this stuff is pointing. I don't think anyone's brought this together. Praise God for giving this to me. This is amazing. So, and the resurrection aspect is he's able to move up and down the realms. Okay, and in depictions of the maze god emerging from the underworld, another episode I want to do that I just figured out. Lightning crashes down from heaven, boom, uh, and basically creates a calabash, brings forth a child, which is Zeus, the lightning bolt. Okay, the same thing comes down out of heaven, and so on with the goddesses, and before that, Gaia. So very interesting there. I'll be working on as soon as I can that story of the flash of lightning basically creating the maze god. And you see in Itzamna, these guys still have a serpent, a long, crazy serpent coming out of their headdress, coming out of anything really. Their leg becomes a serpent, as I showed you a little sneak peek of what we'll see next week. We'll focus on that picture with his leg as a snake, and then him and the middle person being a woman doing a bloodletting ritual. That's a royal lady, and she is releasing blood, which is opening a portal for these spirits to come in. And on the right side, you see the little g god of the air, the little lightning god. And it's the same entity, that's the same snake as you see. So more on that next episode. In classic Maya art, the water lily monster is literally the source of creation. And I saw on him earlier, he wears one of the shirts. I'm like, that looks like a turtle shell. It looks like, he would be backwards in the turtle shell in his clothing kind of thing. This god, little g god, Itzamna. And I was like, it looks like a turtle shell. Well, Maya also have this belief the turtle shell represents the circle of the flat earth. And also being that a symbol for the surface, because the turtle lives at that surface in between the waters and our atmosphere, the surface. And that is what represented by the lotus and the lily flower, as is going to really open up to us. Another episode I'm going to have to do is Venus and lotuses. But here, this just popped out to me. Literally, you saw 5 minutes ago, this wasn't highlighted because I went down. I'm like, wait, I flew by this. I didn't realize. Okay, I found God revealed some crazy stuff through this here. Okay, so if the blossoms represent water lily flowers on that tree with the serpent wrapped around it on the left, okay, the meaning becomes the world tree sprouting from primordial creation water, because once again, the lily, the lotus, comes from the deep, the dark sea, okay, comes to the surface and then grows up to the heavens. So it represents an axis mundi in itself, and it represents creation that came forth from the waters. The Spirit of God hovered upon the face of the waters, and he said, let there be light, and there was. So let's get into some crazy, crazy stuff here. The Egyptian lotus emerging at creation. So, like I've showed multiple times, there's that there's four sons of Horus being born out of this lotus. Okay, well, I was stuck on four sons of Horus. And back there deep in my memory, it didn't really click till I looked at the pictures. But yeah, I have read about the lotus flower, of course, in the beginning of the Egyptian cosmology, the Egyptian religion and understanding, that lotus being there. But that was in the back of my mind. So I went and did a little searching on it, the Egyptian lotus in creation. In ancient Egyptian creation myths, the lotus flower was a powerful symbol that emerged from the primordial waters of chaos. None. So the lotus flower emerged from the primordial waters, the chaotic waters, and God hovered upon the face of the waters. And when you look at it, it's chaotic. in the verse before it, Genesis 1:1, the very first verse of the Bible. This is Genesis 2, God above the chaos waters. Okay. Genesis 1:1, he makes creation. Does God make anything not perfect? Would God make something that's broken down? Tehom, Tehom and Behom? What's the other word, guys? I forget right now. Tehom and the other word, I forget. But Tehom stands for Tiamat in Sumerian. But biblically, Hebrew, Tehom means the deep. Tohu and bohu. The word I'm looking for is tohu and bohu. Ladies and gentlemen, forgive me for my mix up there. So tohu and bohu. It says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was without form and void. Okay, without form and void is tohu and bohu. Tohu and bohu means destroyed, absolutely crushed, broken down unto ruin. It doesn't mean a void. It means something that's been laid out. So God didn't create chaos. Okay, God made a creation in 1:1 in Genesis 1:2. There he is standing over the chaos of a world and an age that once was, and then brings forth this next age. And these civilizations completely seem to have understood that in a way that this modern day, much smarter civilization does not understand. Okay, so there God is in Genesis 1:2, standing on the face of the water, this chaos from what was brought about by the inverted tree, which is these waters in this lotus bringing forth. The lotus flower emerges, bringing forth the sun god Ra. Okay, so not just the four sons of Horus, just like we see in the picture I keep showing you, this serpent having multiple things, and the blood being used to call it up into the realm. Just like multiple things I've been showing you, the top of that staff, okay, Ra would be, the eagle version, or like his son, the hawk, okay, would be the top of the tree, the heaven, the sun god, okay, and as he comes down, and as he goes into the underworld, he becomes Khnum, the four-headed goat god with horns, or Atum, or Adam, saying the lotus flower brought forth Adam. I think the other side, the other tree brought forth Adam, of course. The flower's daily cycle of blooming and closing symbolize the sun's journey in the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This act of creation from the lotus symbolized the birth of the universe and was a central theme in Egyptian mythology and art. The Egyptian creation myth starts with a vast watery chaos that we've seen above, known as Nun. And from this chaos, a single lotus flower emerges, rising above the waters onto a mound of dry land. That mound of dry land is called, I know it becomes like Ben, becomes Ben. Okay, the flower then bloomed, so it comes up out of the deep, out of this chaos that God placed land over, and there it comes up and pops up yet another sun god, who is yeah, in Mexico, what there's, like we've said 100 times today already, 4 sun gods, and they have different ages, and their names. Okay, they got Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca and stuff, but their names on the stelas a lot of times are like the number, one number, and that number helps show the date, an age that they're from. But like 4 wind, and that age got destroyed by wind. 4 jaguar was the age of the giants, and the jaguars came out, which are jaguars in Mayan mythology are always underworld god. That's the sun in the underworld. The sun god, when it gets to the underworld, is known as that. Okay. It's also a symbol of creation and rebirth because the lotus closes at night and reemerges with the sun. It became a symbol for the daily renewal of the sun in the broader cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And so in Revelation 9, we see that Apollyon got locked down in the abyss, or in Tartarus. Who is Apollo? And Apollo is a sun god. In Revelation 9, in the book of Enoch, Shemyaza, who is Shamash, the sun god, gets trapped. And etymologically, look up Shemyaza, do a good search on that. Use a lot of Google in your brain, and you'll find some cool stuff. It's basically similar to Shamash, and a commentator is one who led me to that. Thank God. They showed me a year ago And then also they brought it up again. That's why I would bring forth you. So thank you. Is that the sun god goes down. Apollo lived in the Greek times, and then he disappeared from Earth because the book of Enoch says that they were locked in the abyss. The sun god, Shemyaza, the leader of the fallen angels, locked in the abyss. And then an angel king who would be Shemyaza, the sun god, will be released from said bottomless pit in Revelation 9. And he will be the leader of the 200 million man demon horde army that are going to be coming out of the underworld to wreak judgment upon humans who have turned their back on God. And you can look in Isaiah 13, the Septuagint, and it literally says that God is going to say, open the gates, ye rulers. So in Psalms 22, that's for us, the Christians, that God opens the gates for us to heaven. But for the godless and those who did wicked, in Isaiah 13, it says God opens the gates for the giants to come forth and bring forth his wrath, and that they're going to be screaming as they're doing such things, and they're also going to be rejoicing in what they're doing, and that they're going to be able to scale walls and basically leap up mountains and across valleys, and they're not going to be able to be stopped. And so that's this army going to be released to carry out the judgment of God. Yeah. All right. Connection to the god Nefertim, associated with the lotus, is often depicted with a lotus bloom on his head and was seen as a deity of beauty and healing linked to lotus power. So, guys, I just found this. I haven't done this research myself, so I'm going to try to keep it short, but jump off in your own research. I know I will, and maybe I'll make an episode on it. Nefertum was in Egyptian mythology originally a lotus flower. So this is like the female version. It's a female version of Itzamna. So we have to compare her to what they call Goddess O, and see if she has any ties, any symbology, any connections in the stories and such to Goddess O, the wife of Itzamna. Now, why? Because, like I said, Itzamna, he's the Cayman, he's the world tree, he's that snake at two ends, right? He is the god of the tree. I found Satan. This is Satan, the god of the tree. There might be one higher than him. It doesn't seem like it, because God's the tree of life. How is there going to be something higher than that tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the god thereof? God, and then that tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right, so God is way, way higher. Way higher. God set the rules to this game. Okay, and so this is the female version I'm saying, because that lotus flower is what is this axis mundi, which is producing Ra, which is producing Horus, the four sons of Horus. And on the male side over Mesoamerica, we have Itzamna giving birth to the four sun gods, as you keep seeing on that totem pole. Praise God. Okay, Vishnu, floating on the lotus of Brahma. So the beginning of all these, so now God has opened the way for me to be able to understand their true religion based on the origin symbols. This has been so much more profitable. I needed the stories. Of course, I needed all this study. And now I finally got to this point, is being able to look at the symbols and start seeing things from the blessings of God and the amount of time I put into it. So let's look at Vishnu. And I know it looks like I'm already zoomed in, but let me zoom in more, because start to look at the pattern. So what we see here is the lotus flower coming out of his stomach. So he has what is usually seven-headed serpent, which is straight out of Revelation, right? And then the eighth shall be of the seven. The eighth shall be basically a resurrected one, like the eye wound that was healed ties into this eighth king of the seven, who's also literally of the seven. He's one of them coming back up. And so check out that thing floating on the right in red. That is the lotus flower. It is coming out of his belly button, strangely enough. Enlarge it more so you guys can see better. Start over here. Once again, coming out of his belly button is a lotus flower. This is the Vishnu resting on the waves of creation. This is when God was hovering upon the face of the waters and said, "Let there be light." Homeboy's here floating on a raft with seven serpents and a lotus flower coming out of his belly. This is origin myths. And so now we keep seeing the lotus flower highly important. The water lily in Mexico, the lotus flower over in the east. Okay. Here once again we see the lotus flower up above him. We see how important these symbols are. There's also, I think her name is Lakshmi, who is the goddess of the lotus flower in India. To see once again all these serpents, all these lotus flowers coming out of this man's belly. So before I read this, I lost where I had it, but I was reading that basically this entity of the lotus flower comes forth from his navel when, because he's sleeping on the cosmic ocean, he's at rest. And then when it's time to recreate creation, this navel lotus flower pops out and starts a story, starts an age. So that's very interesting, very crazy. In Hindu creation myths, the god Vishnu is depicted floating in the cosmic ocean on the serpent Ananta, which is like the king serpent Raganaja. From his navel, a lotus flower emerges, and from the center of this lotus, the creator god Brahma is born to begin the creation of the universe. So before creation, he rests in a state of cosmic sleep, floating on the infinite waters on the back of the great serpent. As creation becomes imminent, a lotus flower blooms from his navel. Brahma, the god of creation, is born in the heart of this lotus. Brahma then receives the task from Vishnu to begin the process of creating the universe. And Brahma is a four-faced entity. Okay, and in the Bible, what are four-faced entities? Those are cherubims. And this is just my personal opinion. I don't know for sure, but I do believe that Satan was like a seraphim cherubim, that he had. Satan has, looking at all this stuff that we're looking at, like he has tons of power. Like when he told Jesus and he showed him all his kingdoms at one point in time, um, and it's seeming like he can take many different forms, and maybe more than one form at a time. We're talking about a highly powerful being, nowhere near the level of Jesus Christ, God Almighty, no, but a very interesting entity. And so the point is, I was come to the thoughts many times that Satan would be like a seraphim cherubim. He'd be like a cherubim, four-faced one. So the four-faced ones are the cherubim, and then him have a fifth face, which would be the serpent. I just think that's a high possibility, but I don't know anyone else who says that. The lotus is a significant symbol in Hinduism, representing purity, beauty, and life as it grows out of the mud but blossoms above it. Okay, that's just a cute little saying. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the end of our study here today. We started off with the idea and with the mission to show you that this image represents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and this is the high shaman of it, and he's the god of that tree. He's teaching you how to make sacrifices to that tree right there. So that's him teaching surface level humans how to go about getting a hold of him. That's like his phone number right here. And I think I did that, and I think I gave you a lot of extra information. So if you have any questions, any comments, please leave them for me. They really energize me. If you check my comments, you see that I love the conversations. So I appreciate it when you do. It helps me realize that people are enjoying the content and taking something from the content. So it definitely that blesses me. So please do that. And any question at all, any prayer, ask me for prayer. I'm always happy to do that. And with that being said, I love you guys. Jesus Christ loves you guys, God, who is God Most High. And I just pray for your week. I pray for your knowledge and understanding and wisdom to grow. First in all things, Jesus Christ, the knowledge of the Bible, the knowledge of how to walk with our God. And let that lead into a full understanding of everything, because it is the glory of God to conceal and hide a matter, but it is the glory of kings to search and find those matters out, because God blesses us with that by relationship with him and prayer for those things. In my beginnings, I prayed for knowledge and wisdom every single day, multiple times a day. And hopefully you can see it's helped a little bit. So take this, prepare for next episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to help me, you see my YouTube channel is Life Travel Word. I'd like to be able to do some traveling down to Mexico, do some traveling, maybe to the Southeast Asia, and add on to the Indian stuff there, all the palaces, Angkor Wat type stuff there. I would love to go there. So I'm saving up money now. But if you'd like to support, I have a Patreon. I think it's $8 a month. Please support me there. I would be making extra episodes on there. With this information, I'm just so focused on this right now. To be honest, I'm not putting any special episodes out there because I'm not going to put some of the most interesting and most important information I've ever come across that proves the devil rule beyond a doubt and shows that he's related to the truth and knowledge of good and evil, which therefore proves the Bible true. I surely can't put that behind a paywall. So I hope you guys respect that. And God bless you. Until next time, peace.